It happened at the time when the internet was expanding into the movie business in a kind of a different way, you know what I mean? And like the fan sites and the relationship with the fans and the studios and the comic book creators and stuff was changing and evolving. Zack told me he wanted to basically do the tone of the Dark Knight, you know, Frank Miller series, where he's older and he's kind of broken down and more vulnerable. And I thought that was a really interesting approach to Batman. The spirit of that, as a guy who's vulnerable, as a guy who's aches when he gets up in the morning, as a guy who like feels a lot of psychological sort of torment, I thought was a really interesting approach to playing a hero, and that was how, you know, what we wanted to do. And you know, I had a better time on Batman vs Superman, which I really enjoyed doing. And Justice League was unfortunately like you know, touched by, you know, some personal tragedy and of, you know, death in Zack's family, and it just, like I say, sometimes things sort of work and gel, and sometimes they just, you know, you seem to be just having one problem after another, you know. I really loved Batman vs Superman, and Chris wrote on it, and I really love Zack, and I love putting on the costume, and the idea of doing the digital alteration to the voice was really interesting to me, and I had a good time. I love Detroit. It was a really fun city, a really cool place. You know, my kids came out and visited me and saw me in the bat suit, and they let me borrow the suit for my son's birthday, and so that was a lot of fun. And I sort of had my fill of that. They said, "Do you want to direct and star in like a solo Batman movie?" I found that I had kind of at just some point lost my enthusiasm or passion for it. You know, I was like, this should really be made by somebody for whom it's their wildest dream, you know, come true. And for me, it had become like something different, and it was clear to me that it was time to move on. But I do have some really fond memories, particularly of Batman vs Superman, and how exciting that was, and how energizing it was, and
that movie, you know, having two directors is a very weird thing. You know what I mean? And there's Justice League, the director had a family tragedy and had to leave.
Did you know about that? The Snyder Cut thing?
Yeah, and so you have a kind of cow's body and a horse's head a little bit with two directors a lot of times, and you know, for better or for worse, I think, you know, well, I do think, you know, Zack's cut should be available.
Zack's film, he shot everything that he wanted to shoot. I mean, it's not a matter of whether or not it exists, it's a matter of whether or not we see it. But no, it's I know people are sort of really hungry for that sort of thing, and you never know, maybe one day.
Okay, we have to talk a little Aquaman at least.
All right.
You auditioned at first for Batman. You might be the only guy that was probably too big for the Batman costume.
Ben's big. Ben's huge.
Ben's a big guy.
Ben's huge, yeah.
Did you know when you were doing the Batman audition that maybe this wasn't the right
I
fit?
almost didn't go in. I thought, this is dumb. Batman's not going to be my tint. There's no way we're hiring me to play Batman. Zack was very, very, like, I want to see him. I want to see the tape. Bring him in.
Yeah.
And so I followed my agents. I was like, fine, I'll do it. But I just decided to do it in a total different way, that if Batman got mugged by some people in an alleyway, like, gangster walks up, puts his thing on, he just doesn't give two shits. And so I just played it that way because it was already an existing scene.
Right.
And it was just gonna be, it's just a booby trap. I knew it was a booby trap, so I just played it.
Well, you clearly showed him something, because he very soon after brings you back and says,
yeah,
you're my Aquaman.
Yeah.
So it seems to me, judging from our past conversations and others you've had, you're always going to be indebted to Zack. Zack Snyder's your
totally,
guy.
man.
He changed your life.
Totally.
So is that partially why when we spoke about a year ago and I brought up the Snyder Cut, you're like, yeah, I need to see that?
Yeah, absolutely. But I have seen it, so.
I've seen
the Snyder Cut, so.
So what does that mean? Because the effects aren't done. Like, you've seen his assemblage of footage and alternate takes, etc.
Oh, do you think Zack couldn't finish it? You don't think he?
I don't know. You tell me. He's finished.
I mean, listen, man. Next question.
Do you think we'll ever see it? Do you think the public will ever see it at this point? Because it seems like it's actually, the groundswell has grown. And a year ago, I would have had my doubts.
You know, I'm obviously indebted to Warner's and DC, and you know, I don't know how they feel about it, but I mean, as a fan, I'm very, very happy that I got to see it.
Does it feel like a totally different movie than the Justice League that was released?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, are we talking day after, week after?
Yeah, because in Zack's cut,
we had it where I was with Volko and Mara, and I say that I have to go home, and they say there's this force coming and that I need to help. And I'm like, I'm going home to see my dad, and so I get in the back of a pickup truck and pound a bottle of something, and off he goes, the Wanderer. You know what I mean? So that was kind of like the end of Justice League, where I was going.
Justice League is a very controversial film that we won't talk about, today. We are following the path of...
So, before this video would have started, I would have inserted a lot of clips from various people that were either in the Justice League movie, or at least the one they released, and also people with links to the movie to prove 100% that the Snyder Cut is real. No end of the comments on these videos say, Warstu, you're wrong, the movie doesn't exist. I only make these videos because I get blown up quite a few times a week. Over 50 times a week I get asked to make these videos about the Snyder Cut. So I do it for the fans. For the fans that don't have a voice, I do it for you. So recently, DC Comics, someone really high up in DC on the same wavelength as Jeff Johns, has officially addressed the Justice League Snyder Cut. Yes, it's officially been addressed at C2X2, which is a Comic-Con that happened at, I think, well, this article is back from March the 1st, so a while ago. So his current position is DC publisher and chief creative officer Jim Lee. He had some thoughts about the Justice League Snyder Cut and the fact that he addressed it, and he didn't say it was fake. He didn't say that it didn't exist. He didn't say anything about that. He said the following, okay? It's a really tough question to answer, but he answered it anyway. But I would say the only thing I say this is that I think sometimes there is a movement to sort of segregate the audience and dismiss a group and say they're not the fans, right? They're the people like this, or they're only like that. I think that's something we need to resist. Honestly, we need every comic book fan that's out there, whether you're a Snyder Cut or not. You're a DC fan. I want you to be a fan. Now, that is quite promising from someone high up in DC. They're optimistic. They're not dismissive of the Snyder Cut. But, of course, the Snyder Cut fans, I mean, I want the Snyder Cut, but I'm not one of these hardcore Snyder Cut fans who attack anyone that says it doesn't exist. Because like I said, guys, I've showed you ample times that it exists. So many people, literally, the clip before this video started, Cyborg says it's cut. Zack Snyder shot everything he wanted to shoot. Okay? This additional photography, which we're going to go on about towards the end of this video, is neither here or there. So it's optimistic that he says, I want you as a fan, regardless to what your opinion is, I want you as a fan. And I agree, you should not just be a fan of one segregation of DC. You should not just be a DC fan. You should be a fan of everything, so to speak. DC, Marvel, they're literally the same. Oh my God, I just said that. They're the same in the sense that they are made from comic book stories initially. So whether the Snyder Cut exists, comicbook.com, really, it does exist so much. It exists. He even suggests that it's completed CGI work on his version. On Vero, Snyder said, film is not 100% finished. Still some stuff I want to do. As with every film I've made, not sure what the difference is as to level of editing. So every time Snyder says he wants to do something different, wants to add more, people are like, the Snyder Cut does not exist. It 100% exists. Every actor, Jason Momoa is like, yeah, I've seen it. I really want you to see it. Even Ben Affleck is now getting on the train going, yeah, fans really should see it. I was really happy with EVS, but there was just 2 directors for Justice League, and that just didn't make any sense. So everyone has come out to support it, except for Henry Cavill. Although Henry Cavill has kind of. So we're still reading this article. The report that came out in Variety also suggested that Warner Bros. Has no plans to release the Snyder Cut in theaters or via HBO Max streaming service. but can Variety be trusted? They also broke the story that Spider-Man was no longer in the MCU, and then 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks later, they're like, yeah, he's back in the MCU. So websites don't really mean anything because stories and news is subjective and it can always be interchanged, adjusted, and stories will always change. That's a pipe dream. There's no way it's ever happening. The report suggests that finishing the Snyder Cut version of the film would cost millions of dollars in the editing and visual effects works, and Warner Bros. Isn't interested. Well, here's something that a lot of people don't know, and that a lot of people don't agree with me every time I say this. Okay, am I going to say it right? It's worded AT&T owns Warner Bros. Okay, and they want to utilize HBO Max to put the release of Snyder Cut on there. I mean, even there's a really long YouTube video with Kevin Smith talking about what was going to happen in the actual Snyder Cut. So it's interesting that websites will run these stories going, it doesn't exist. Then we are told from internal sources that Warner Bros. Is in negotiations with Snyder to finish his movie, the movie they wanted him to finish, because fans want it. They really want it. And now Warner Bros. Is not working on any kind of shared universe, which is something that I wish Marvel wouldn't do. I wish Marvel would just have standalone movies, because then you could get R-rated content. And that's one of the reasons why the Lizzie McGuire show has been cancelled on Disney Plus, because they wanted to touch subjects that 15-year-olds go through and kind of storylines that will be too edgy for their service. So that show got axed because this let's stay PG-13. No, Disney, please just do R-rated, not even R-rated, do 15 rated content. So they could finish the Snyder Cut, and then they could realistically get Ben Affleck back, etc. for reshoots on, and they could just call it an Elseworld storyline or like a standalone story, but people want to see it. So it is interesting that Jim Lee addressed it officially, says it exists, because why would you word it like that if it didn't? So I was reading this article, and I want to give it the time of my day. Justice League, can Zack Snyder proposed reshoots? Scenes actually happen. Zack Snyder is teasing additional photography to add a few new scenes to the Justice League via his own reshoots. Does it have any chance of happening? Of course there are chances. There's articles going around saying that Warner Bros. Sorry, not Warner Bros. Because they don't own the company. AT&T offered Snyder $10 million. And then it's got an interesting headline inside the article. Getting funding for Justice League reshoots isn't as hard if the Snyder Cut is approved. Really? Really? It may seem like a bridge too far to consider. Warner Bros. Resists the release of the Snyder Cut thus far. If they aren't even interested in releasing the cut as it is now, asking for money to shoot even more seems ludicrous. The fact that Snyder says the new scenes will include Ben Affleck, when Ben Affleck says his passion is gone for the role, and Superman, who WB can't wrangle into a new contract, seems even more far-fetched. But the way you would have seen Ben Affleck talk about the Snyder Cut, because it'll be the start of this video, he's so passionate about working with him. But it's important to keep in mind that Zack Snyder already needs work done and has green-litted release, which is interesting. Snyder will be getting some amount of funding to complete the movie if everything is true. If Snyder is able to get the funding, adding the money for additional photography is only to be asked. The Mountain is getting Snyder Cut green-lit, and once it's green-lit, they can go forward with it. And then it goes, if AT&T wants to utilize the Snyder Cut on HBO Max, then we move past the novelty of this project for fan curiosity, or of any kind, incomplete release as some kind of like Kevin Smith has suggested. At this point, AT&T would want the Snyder Cut to boost HBO Max subscribers, meaning they'd also want as complete possible variation of this movie, as also different from the theatrical cut. Because what is the point of them just releasing the movie that's already out there? There's no point. Potentially marketing it as something entirely different, as this would be the Snyder Cut Justice League. You know? They would do that. Ben Affleck will return as Batman for Snyder, but will Henry Cavill? As far as this goes, Snyder said the new scenes could involve Batman, Superman, Lois Lane, and Martian Manhunter. Maybe. But what is interesting is it says the following: DCEU don't have any return on the horizon. While Cavill still voice enthusiasm for the role, he currently is without a contract, and Affleck has been actively distancing himself from the franchise. Well, not really. He's been distancing himself from working with that point of view, but he's recently done a movie with Warner Bros. So it isn't too far-fetched to say if his friend Zack Snyder called him up, he would. When it comes to the potential of Affleck returning for the Snyder Cut, he has only gone on record in support of the Snyder Cut recently. So it's most likely going to be the case. Then this article finishes with saying Henry Cavill would be the hardest one to get on board because Cavill refuses to support the Snyder Cut. When asked, he said he was going to focus more on the future of Superman, which realistically, you've misinterpreted what he said. He still wants to be Superman. He just doesn't want to be attached to that version of the Justice League. So yeah, it seems like everyone would be on board. You know, even Gal Gadot is trolling when she's like, oh, the Snyder Cut in a recent interview or press junket for Wonder Woman 94. There's no context of when that was actually recorded. So everyone is on board. I don't want to keep making these Snyder Cut videos, but I will keep making them when people like Jim Lee keep talking and articles like this keep coming out. We know the fans have been fighting for over 2 years for this movie. Every time there is one new image, someone jumps on something. But guys, seriously, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Either way, I will keep you up to date with all the latest and greatest DC news. As you know, I am the founding father. I am the oracle. I am the prophecy of Justice League Snyder Cut being revealed. No, guys, I'm not. I'm saying that because I'm the voice of the unvoiced people, of the people that have no voice online. So what I'm saying is, I will push the Snyder Cut being released if there's info out there like there is currently. So that is why I make these videos. I'm not being serious when I say I'm the founding father. I would just support this information whilst it's out there, whilst it makes sense. But realistically, Zack could do this if he wanted. If things go well, then sure, this will come out. So like always, guys, please like, subscribe, and comment. I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch ya later.